Good to hear. My name is Tina. I will be your panel moderator for the night. Before I get started introducing myself and this event and our wonderful panelists, I kind of want to hear just a little bit from you guys. Who here is finishing midterms? You're all ready for spring break? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Who here is still struggling through the midterms and papers? And, oh, sorry guys. Yeah, well, best of luck on those. So, thank you for coming out tonight, especially to those of you who still have that work to do. Again, my name is Tina. I am the panel moderator. I'm a fourth year majoring in business and media studies, and I'm part of an awesome organization called Blueprint. So, we make mobile and web applications for nonprofits pro bono, and something that is super important to our mission is that we facilitate these kinds of discussions on how we can continue to bring tech to social good. So that's why we're here today. This is our second semesterly Bridging Tech and Social Good panel, and we're very happy to have everyone. So before our panelists introduce themselves, I'm sure you guys are all dying to hear from them. I just want to give a quick rundown of how tonight will look. So we're going to start out with moderated question and answer from me. We have questions from Blueprint members that I'm going to ask our panelists first. Then we'll have open Q&A, and everyone here is welcome to ask any questions. At the end of this portion, at 8:30, we will open the floor to mingling. We'll have food outside, and you guys are welcome to approach some of our panelists individually and get to know them better. So I hope that sounds good to everybody, and let's get started. All right, so hello, panelists. Let's start with introductions, of course. I'm sure everyone is really eager to get to know them. So please introduce yourselves and the organizations you represent, and include a brief description of what you and your organizations do in the realm of technology and social good. So.
Hi, my name is Tuisha Mehta, and I'm representing SamaSource tonight. SamaSource is a social enterprise based in San Francisco, and what we do is socially responsible outsourcing, and we like to call it impact sourcing. So what does that mean? Socially responsible outsourcing basically means that we are trying to connect opportunities to people that normally would not have these opportunities around the world. And we get big new clients from Silicon Valley, and we train and hire marginalized populations in Africa, India, Haiti, Ghana to do digital work for some of the largest tech companies here. So I'll pass it on to Ariana.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariana. I'm representing LinkedIn today. First of all, quick question. How many of the people in the room have LinkedIn profiles? Great, so everyone's familiar with LinkedIn. So not a lot of people might know this, but the first reason I joined LinkedIn, and I'm a Cal alum as well, is because I heard about the mission of the company, which is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. And the vision of the company is to ensure economic opportunity for people from all backgrounds. And so that alone resonated really well with me because social impact and nonprofit work is something I've always been passionate about. So at LinkedIn, we actually have a social impact arm called LinkedIn for Good, and that serves 3 key audiences. The first is the nonprofit community. So in my day job, I actually work with nonprofits in order to leverage our technology and our platform and our resources to better further their missions. We also have an employee volunteerism program, which I also help lead, that helps our employees with connecting with social impact opportunities and making social impact a bigger part of their core professional identities. And then the final area is for our member base. So everyone in this room who's a LinkedIn member, we want to ensure that you have the opportunity to showcase causes and volunteer experiences you're passionate and proud about. So things like the volunteer and causes section of your profile are all part of that member-facing arm of LinkedIn for Good.
Hi everyone, my name is Connie Knox, and I work for Palantir. We are a data integration and analysis software firm based out of Palo Alto. I oversee our execution at the Philanthropy Engineering team, which is a dedicated team to improving and saving lives. We apply our technology and we put our best engineers and partner with nonprofits or other organizations to help them make better decisions, essentially, and be more effective in what they do. We work across multiple sectors and issue sets, from social services to helping nonprofits and federal partners and local and state partners to eradicate homelessness, to in human trafficking. We help find missing and exploited children or match human trafficking victims to the services they need, to helping aid organizations distribute aid much more efficiently after natural disasters, like the one in Vanuatu now, potentially. And we are also starting to work much more in global health and agriculture, so improving productivity and livelihoods of smallholder farmers to improving vaccine delivery and coverage. I'll have much more to say, but I'll stick to that. Nice to meet you.
Hi everyone, my name is Esther Ray and I work for Adobe. I really hope you know what that is. But in case you don't, Adobe is a product and software company that helps our customers with creative solutions to turn their ideas into actionable products and services and businesses. And we have a social mission that's very much aligned with that. We invest in people and organizations who are looking at creative ways to solving the world's biggest problems. Specifically, I work on the corporate responsibility team, and I manage our global volunteer initiatives, so helping our employees to give back to the community through their own service of giving of time, as well as their skills and expertise. I'm also a Cal alum. I also went here for my undergrad, and I couldn't get enough Cal, so I'm actually still here in the MBA program, so I'm the second year in the part-time MBA program.
I am Armando Fox. I am a professor in computer science at UC Berkeley. You're probably familiar with that organization. And I apologize in advance that I probably have to leave at around 10 after 8, so I won't be around for the mixing stuff, so you're going to have to shoot your arrows while I'm up here. In computer science, I do research in 2 different areas, programming systems and online education. And they actually come together nicely in the course that I spend most of my time these days teaching, which is software engineering. The upper division, CS 169. I am not the only faculty member in CS who teaches that course, but the version of it that I teach, which I usually team teach with Professor Dave Patterson, but he's on sabbatical this year, so it's just me. Our version has the distinguishing feature, I think, that for their final course projects, we actually match up student teams of 5 or 6 people with actual nonprofits, campus units, and NGOs, and they build real software with a real customer, doing multiple iterations with customer meetings every 2 weeks. And they really get the satisfaction of trying to solve somebody else's problem. So I think beyond sort of teaching the skills necessary to do good software engineering in my course, the other thing that I try to do is instill a little bit of a sense of value and moral obligation in the Berkeley students that I am privileged to work with. Now, while I know that the world is dangerously short of ways to send a message to someone with a smartphone, you know, my only options are text message, IM, WeChat, Snapchat, Instagram, WeSnap, InstaChat, Snapagram. Anyway, you could do that, or you could find a way to help me order food a little bit faster, or hook up a little easier, or as a student of the world's premier public institution ever in the world, you could apply your considerable talents to leave the world a little better than you found it. And software is showing up. Software is by far the best area, in my opinion, in which you can use a lever like that to really move the world. So I really believe that, and I try to convey that to my students. And I'm very proud to say that Blueprint, which is hosting this event, actually was spun off by students who were in my class a couple of years ago and were inspired to say, you know, why should we only do this in class? Why can't we have a student organization that does this full time? So I was really honored to be asked to be here, and I'm glad to be able to be here till 8:10.
Great, thank you, panelists. So I'm going to begin with a couple questions that are for each of you in turn. My first one is, what do you think has been you or your organization's biggest triumph in tech for social good? Yeah, go ahead.
So as a social enterprise, our biggest goal is to serve our beneficiaries. And so I think our first step is to kind of not just measure the breadth of how many people we've impacted, but also the depth. and what does it mean for us to impact one person and their families. And so I briefly mentioned what SomaSource does. I'm going to explain a little bit about the micro-work model before I explain what our impact is. So what we basically do is socially responsible outsourcing, as I mentioned earlier. And the micro-work model takes complicated digital tasks and breaks them down into small tasks that anybody can be easily trained and hired to do. And so what we do is we have a Sama Hub, which is our tech platform that's engineered here in San Francisco, and we have our partner delivery centers across Africa, India, Ghana, and Haiti. And we train and hire people living in poverty to do very simple digital tasks. And so we utilize the power of the internet to bring jobs and opportunities around the world. And even in the most rural of areas where the only jobs are farming or anything that's handicraft based, we bring digital work to these rural areas as well. And so to date, we have trained and hired over 6,000 people across 5 geographies. And one of the most inspiring things that I've actually seen is how technology connects opportunities to people living in such rural areas. For the last 2 years, we've started a pilot program at the border of South Sudan and Uganda. This is where the LRA conflict took place. If you look at this area, it's off the grid. The government doesn't want to invest in roads or any type of infrastructure just because of 10 years of conflict. And it's just inspiring to see that with our partnership with Oxfam Novib, we've not only brought high-speed internet to these villages, but we're also bringing jobs. And so, workers in northern Uganda are doing work for Getty Images, for other clients like Retail Me Not, etc. So it's really cool to see how technology can connect people around the world to do something that they otherwise would not have exposure to.
So I think our greatest triumph over the last few years is, quite simply put, making social impact a core part of our business model. And that's both from the bottom up, so our employees embodying it on a daily basis, and from the top down, so our executives also believing in it and also making it front and center in terms of the metrics and the programs that are most top of mind for them. And so this is manifested in a few ways. So a couple of key accomplishments over the last few years have been our member facing. So I mentioned the volunteer and causes section of the LinkedIn profile. That didn't exist before. And getting something like that added to the core part of the member experience and something that's right on the member's profile actually took a pretty big lift to get buy-in from our executive leadership, engineering team, product, and then also subsequent changes that needed to happen in the user interface, front-end engineering. And so I think that embodied one really big mindset shift, that helping our members represent the causes and volunteer opportunities they're passionate about is so important. And then on the flip side, we also want to make sure nonprofits know about people who are interested in donating their time and their skills to make an impact. And so we've put pretty significant investment behind our nonprofit program, which is a side of the business that I work on. So we discount our products, and we also give away product for free to nonprofits, so they can find the 10 million now members who've indicated that they want to serve on a board, volunteer their time or skills, or work at a nonprofit. And then I think the last area, as it relates to our employees, is one huge challenge that we face, and I'm sure we'll delve a little bit deeper into this topic in our discussion today, is the fact that on a day-to-day basis, not every employee feels that they have the time or that they're being measured on the volunteer and social impact work that they might like to do on the side. It's maybe a nice to have or an add-on to what they're doing. And so as a way to shift that, this year we're actually piloting a new initiative that it's the first time we've aligned employee volunteerism up to our company vision. And that's called the economic graph. So what I spoke about earlier, which is essentially ensuring that LinkedIn is providing economic opportunity to everyone around the world. We want to literally create this graph of opportunity, be it job opportunities, companies, educational experiences, skills. And so by aligning one of our core volunteer programs to the company vision of the economic graph, we've actually helped employees feel more and more that it's an important part of what they do on a daily basis as it serves the core purpose of our business at LinkedIn. And I can delve into that a little bit deeper, but really a huge pilot and a big shift for us is helping helping every employee take a crack at youth unemployment in their local communities. So I think, again, to sum up, really it is making social impact more and more a part of what we do on a day-to-day basis as a business. That's been probably our biggest accomplishment in the past few years.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, biggest triumph, and I was reflecting on that. Maybe just to explain our model at Palantir is we've got so the philanthropy engineering team that I'm part of, and I've got the distinct pleasure of leading. We are about 13 FTE strong out of a company that has over 1,500 engineers. And our CEO, from the start of the company when we were founded in 2004, he mentioned he was always very clear, and he said, I do not want, I want our technology to be applied to hardest problems in the world, and I do not want us to distinguish between those organizations that can pay and those who cannot pay. So hence the birth of the philanthropy engineering team. So we apply our resources, which is our advanced technology and our engineers, to the organizations that are in a position to help solve these biggest problems in the world. And as such, impact, we define impact as human lives saved or improved. So I would kind of think about it as any life saved through our work is a huge triumph. There are a lot of things that we do. For example, we've worked with the Polaris Project, which is a human trafficking hotline based out of DC. And through their work using Palantir, they saved a girl who was kidnapped and was taken on the road to be prostituted, basically. And through SMS technology that fed into Salesforce that Palantir sits on top of, and we could make sense of that data that was coming in through her phone, texting where she was at the time. The call center specialists at Polaris Project were able to immediately refer this particular case to law enforcement that was on that particular highway, and that girl was saved. That is a huge triumph to me. Another triumph is our work with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where analysts using Palantir were able to integrate multiple data sources from sex offender databases to historical missing children databases to tips coming through, and were able to crack down a teen sex ring in multiple states. Another example is working after Hurricane Sandy and enabling hundreds of different aid organizations to share information securely and safely, and in real time understand what, where, and how can we plan for that. So making better decisions that effectively help people to have better lives. There are many more kind of examples that there's not one triumph. I think our triumph is having many different smaller triumphs and improving people's lives.
Okay, thanks. This is really cool to learn. So at Adobe, one of the things that, just at a business level, our customers love our products. We have, fortunately been able to create sort of an emotional connection with our customers to our products. Jobs are created, graphic design is everything, with all of our creative cloud solutions. And that's a really powerful tool and resource, and something we take very seriously. And one of the things I'm really proud of is sort of applying that same sort of care and understanding to our social impact. And that's, with our relationships with key partners and our nonprofit partners. And personally, what I've been really proud of is our pro bono initiative, in which we've taken our greatest assets, our employees, and connected them to causes that they care about, and leveraging not only our technology, we do product donations, but allowing them to take the time to really help solve their biggest challenges. Things that they just don't have the expertise on their team, or the bandwidth, or even the knowledge of where to start. We can take that and to build, again, a deeper connection, and to really try to understand. This is, again, another key audience for us. It's a key target market, and it's a partnership that we really value, not only as a company, but it's something our employees want. And so that's something we're continuing to evolve. Just a small example, we piloted the program in 2012, and one of the first projects we did was working with the Children's Creativity Museum in San Francisco. And they, serve a huge population of families, but they actually didn't have a space currently available to really cater to kids ages 5 and under. It was mostly kind of elementary school. And so we worked with them to kind of design and figure out what kind of exhibit can you really, provide as a space space, a safe space, and one that really allows, kids under the age of 5 to really explore what their sensory skills were, a lot of touch screens and colors and things like that, to really kind of engage the core audience and to really allow the museum to become a very family-friendly place. So that was a really just cool opportunity where we had some engineers and designers put their heads together in a different way. We had a strong relationship with them already to begin with, and this just really helped us to understand, what it was in a local need in our community, as well as able to use our technology as well as our employees to be able to make that happen.
So this is weird. I'm going to try to be a company here. I don't have any products, but over the last 2 offerings of CS169, or class 3 offerings, our students have built over 60 prototype software systems for over 40 different nonprofit, NGO, and campus unit customers, many of which are still in use in production at those places. I don't have any FTEs, but I have 240 students taking a class for 4 units. That's supposed to be 12 hours a week by the university's equation. If you assume students work about 50 hours a week, I have about 60 FTEs nominally under my supervision doing another round of projects right now this semester. And that's not even counting my 5 20-hour-a-week awesome TAs, of which one, Sam Lau, is a blueprint officer. So I could talk about specific projects that we've done, many of which we're really proud of. We worked with Oakland Children's Hospital, Bay Area Mountain Rescue, Bay Area SPCA, the American Red Cross, Fair Trade Coffee in Africa. I could go on and on. However, I think the real accomplishment of this course has been that the students are working with external customers that have this profile. A couple of years ago, when Dave Patterson and I took the course over, the original way it worked is students would come in and propose their own project. And we had actually gone out to industry to ask the people who are hiring our best students in software jobs, what kind of skills are these students really lacking? Where are we missing in our job to provide great software engineers? And one of the top things that they said was the students really need more experience in how to work in a team, especially when the customer is non-technical. When the customer knows their business need, but they don't know the technical language to express what to have built. And the first time we ran the class saying, you're not going to get to pick your own project, you're going to do it with a customer, a lot of the students were disappointed. They're like, oh, but I had this thing I wanted to do, or I have this startup in mind. And at the end of the class, every single group said, it was so rewarding to actually put my skills to use to solve somebody else's problem, and especially somebody who, as a nonprofit or an NGO, often would not have been in a position to pay what those students are really worth on the market if they had to hire them at market rates. So being able to give something back to that community and to have the students come away from it feeling like not only had they learned how to work with a customer, but they had actually injected a little bit of good into the world. I think having them walk out of the course with that experience and that attitude, that's really the biggest achievement that we've accomplished. There's individual projects that are great, and I love them, but it's the way that we're trying to change the students' views of what software can be and what they could do with their skills.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those success stories with us. I'm seeing some really great themes emerge, so I'm really excited for the chance to ask more about those, or maybe our audience can. For now, I'm going to ask my next question that is for all the panelists to answer, and that is to look at the flip side of that same coin. So we talked about your success stories. Now, I want to know what has been you or your organization's biggest challenge in meeting your goals in tech for social good.
See generations of students come and go, so I have a little bit of perspective on it. So I actually planned ahead for this because I saw the list of questions, and I find 2 things. One of them is, I think, relatively straightforward to solve, and one of them is a little more challenging, but you're all a Berkeley students, so it's not Stanford, you can step up to it. The one that is, here's the one that's relatively easy to solve. It's great to be enthusiastic about wanting to put your pro bono energy into doing a great thing in technology for someone who could really use the help. However, enthusiasm is only part of the equation. You got to have the chops. I do see a lot of posts of the form, hey, I've never written any code, but I want to do this thing. And you never see a post from a doctor saying, hey, I've never gone to med school, but I want to make people not be blind, right? Programming is a difficult thing to do. The good news is, besides the courses, we've got groups like Blueprint, groups like Code the Change, there's code.org, there's massive open online courses. There's places you can go to get your chops built up so that you can make a contribution. But make no mistake, doing technical things is difficult. It's the reason that a demanding 4-year degree program is required to really put that seal of approval on people. And we, the faculty and the students who are already in this area, would love to help you get up to speed on that so that you can do these great things. So I think challenge number 1 is understand that you do need to have some level of technical expertise, and we can help you get to that level. We can help you find the area where you want to make a contribution, steer you towards the right places to get the chops, and then go out and save the world. We want to do that. So that's one thing. The other thing, and there's sort of no diplomatic way to say this, so I'm just going to say it in the ugly way. I have been reading a fair amount, disturbingly, quite a bit actually, about various of the misogynistic or the bro grammar culture or the bro culture. And it's like, okay, guys, remember when girls were icky? That was in 3rd grade. We need to get over that. And I don't know if anybody saw, there was a raft of MIT studies that was just done on team projects where they measured the collective intelligence of various groups solving difficult tasks. One of the most highly correlated factors of success was how many women are in the group. So guys, figure this out, okay? The women who are around you are the smartest women in the world. That's why they're here at Berkeley. Get your attitudes together, and if you know people who are like in the programmer culture, would you tell them to grow the F up? Okay, so those are my 2 things.
Right, I'm not sure how to follow that. I completely agree.
I had to tell it like it is.
Yeah, so for Adobe, I think that one of our biggest challenges is just making the time. It's almost, we have a great core employee group that's very passionate about a lot of various causes. And we also have to balance that with work, demands and the business evolving so very quickly. And you will all encounter this in whatever job you decide to go into. And I think that, that's just going to be an ongoing challenge, and there's just different ways that you can, figure out how to solve that. So for me, I would just say from a company's perspective, finding the right, talent, finding the time and the support to make that happen is something that is on my mind all the time, and it's something I'm facing on a day-to-day basis, and I see where the greatest opportunity is.
Talent, absolutely. We employ the best, and we are looking for the best. So, is this working? Yeah. Talent for sure. We have so many more problems to solve, and we don't have enough people. So we're growing rapidly, and we need more of the best. That's one. And second, whether we're a software company, so financial engineering is wholly part of the company. So whether we work with big banks or government or local government or nonprofits. Our engagement model is work very closely hand in hand with the customer and iterate with that customer and make it easy for that customer to engage with their data so that they can make better decisions and become more efficient. So what we essentially do is we transform how organizations interact with their data and make it easy by taking all the hard stuff away from them. The people that are in a position to actually address some of the hardest problems in the world are not necessarily people who write code or understand, what a certain string means, or can write SOAP queries. So what we do is we take all of that off their plates. We do all the back-end stuff. So we write the code, we do the data integration, we do the data modeling hand in hand with the customer, so that when the customer wants to conduct the analysis on their data in Palantir, they see persons, they see events, they see documents, they don't see strings, right? And what is challenging for us is finding the right partners. And I'm saying partners also in a commercial setting. So good partners for us are people that, organizations that have very high vision, that are not constrained by thinking about problems through the tools that they have at their disposal, but can actually say, well, these are my questions of my data, this is my data, help me solve it. And that's where we do our best work. So where our challenges are people that do not think out of the box, do not have high vision, or where we're kind of stuck in a bureaucratic net. So those are our challenges.
So
So I think at LinkedIn, the biggest challenge that we've faced as of the last year or so is actually being able to quantify impact, of social impact. So that means, is there a correlation between employee volunteerism and employee retention rates? Is there a correlation between employees feeling more connected to the work that they do into their local communities and their willingness to be more passionate about the work and to stay at the company for longer and put more of themselves into their work? And so these are things that we have yet to figure out the right way to measure, but I think one of the consequences of that is I spoke in the last question about bottom up and top down, and how we're very lucky at LinkedIn to have that very supportive atmosphere where both our executives and our employees are starting to more and more embody social impact and make it a bigger core part of what they do on a daily basis. But what we're finding is that because it's been difficult for us to really measure and quantify impact, it's been difficult to translate what we really believe is the right thing to do, where we want to spend our time, into ways that employees are measured, and the way that managers are thinking, their expectations that managers have of their employees. We're actually finding that the biggest challenge has been in that middle level, middle management, being supportive of your employees, taking an afternoon to go work with underserved youth on building LinkedIn profiles, or of the sales reps on their team discounting or donating products deeply because it's the right thing to do, because the teams aren't measured on impact, they're measured on revenue, and they're measured by results. And so we're trying to figure out ways where we can not only quantify, but start to embed those metrics in a way that we as a business and as individual employees are measured and considered successful.
At SoundSource, I think our biggest challenge is scale. So as a social enterprise, our biggest goal is to serve as many people as we possibly can. And so, but also because we're a business, we require work to serve our beneficiaries. And so, from 2008 till today, we have trained and hired over 6,000 people. And we really want to hire more, we want to train more people, and it all just depends on our enterprise clients and continuing work. And so we would love to, I think the business end of it requires a lot of work, as well as the impact end of it as well. And in terms of an impact challenge, I feel like one of the biggest things that I'm working on is, what does that longitudinal impact mean? When you hire somebody, especially somebody who has never had any formal work experience, somebody who's coming from an agricultural background, somebody who's worked in casual jobs all their life, or has been unemployed for a long period of time, what does it mean to give somebody formal work employment? And so we obviously have a way of tracking that through our monitoring and evaluation system, but our biggest challenge is to track what happens to these people after they leave SoundSource. And so we do collect data, but at a very small sample size. And so what we're really looking to do is find better ways to measure that impact 1 to 2 years after they leave us. And we've tried different tech solutions using mobile surveys, in-person surveys, online surveys, etc. And so that's one of the things that we're grappling with right now. And we're really looking to explore how we can better measure our long-term impact on what formal work provides to a person.
Great answers, panelists. So we're actually almost at the end of the moderated Q&A section, which makes me a little sad because I think I thought of like 10 questions while sitting here, but hopefully the audience will ask those for me. Before opening the floor to Q&A, I do have one last question that I think is on many students' minds, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it for everybody. What would you recommend that students do if they're interested in the intersection of tech and social good? More specifically, what should they pursue in education, extracurriculars, or their early professional careers?
Sure. I'm happy to go. It's kind of with the same thing I would tell my students who are sort of really interested in a software career of any kind. So let's just assume that when in this room, when we say technology, I think code and software, because that's kind of what I do. I know there's many other approaches, but let's, for the moment, narrow the answer to that. Taking classes and doing course projects, even really cool course projects like my course happens to feature, is not enough. Code is one of these things that, code is just hard, all right? It's a rewarding activity, you can change the world with it, but it is intellectually demanding, and it makes a big difference to do coding-related projects that are outside of your classes. Those can be projects you do for yourself, they can be things you do for fun to pick up a new technology, they can be things you do with a group like Blueprint or Code for Change to actually contribute to an existing project. But keeping your brain sort of limber and being able to do projects that are beyond what your instructors are asking you to do. Our job is to sort of help you build particular skills. And in order to do that, we have to scaffold and circumscribe and sort of artificially constrain some of the homework assignments and exams we give you, because that's how you build the skill. But the reason we want to give you the skills is to do real projects. And for the most part, you're not going to get to do most of those in a classroom setting. You're going to have to go outside the classroom to do them. But like I said, the good news is Berkeley has a lot of student groups that are really dedicated to reaching out and finding customers to work with. We've got companies like the ones represented on this panel who have like an arm of the company that specifically wants to work with students on this. That's what you really need to be doing. The stuff you're doing to learn the skills in the class is really just step one. You've got to get out and do other projects. And just do them as much as you can. Do them, throw them away, leave them half done, learn something, whatever it takes, but keep your brain in it. It's like chess, you know? It doesn't take long to learn chess, but you got to play a lot of chess to really get good at chess. And I think programming is like that. And it gets more fun the more you do it. You feel good at it, and it kind of makes you feel like, hey, I'm somebody, you know, I can really, I have a lot of things to contribute. I have a lot of tools in my belt. Let's go see which projects are out there, and, you know, do they need front-end web design? Do they need back-end server design? Do they need to refactor their weird MongoDB thing? No problem, I can learn that. That's a great feeling when you get to the point that you have those chops. So do the projects outside of class. That's my single biggest suggestion. Find projects to do outside of class.
Take his
And by the way, that's what you'll remember when you leave here. You won't remember your classes. You'll remember all the stuff you did outside of class that was really, really cool. True fact.
So after you've taken his fabulous class, and do as he says, definitely apply it. And my biggest recommendation, you guys all know you're all smart and brilliant, you know, Berkeley. You know, get involved. I think the biggest thing that you can do is really find out what you're passionate about. What area are you personally really invested in? If it is education, is it working with youth? Is it hunger and homelessness? Whatever issue that's important to you for whatever reason, you know, find an organization or find a way to really help, you know, help serve them, help understand them, and figure out how you can get connected. You know, if it is an opportunity to do a project, a pro bono initiative, that's awesome. That's a great way to apply what you've learned and to support something that you really care about. Because once you find something you're passionate, you know, your opportunities are endless. And I think there's so much that needs to be done. I think that there's just so much you can apply to that. So even more tangibly and tactically, of course, again, there's a lot of student organizations on campus that are very, you know, involved in these things. Blueprint sounds like a great place to start. And, you know, take on a project, you know, do a consulting project or enter a case competition that's, you know, has this kind of specific area that you're interested in. I think those are different ways that you can, you know, really find, you know, apply your skills, apply the, you know, lessons you've learned, and also figure out what it is that you're really passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with the previous two speakers. I think set your vision high. Like really, don't get boxed in. Don't let other people box you in either. And obviously, if you are a software engineer, you're a CS major, you know, focus on that and be the best that you can be. But hey, if you're not, you could have other skills that you can bring to the fore, right? And maybe just a personal example. So I am now an engineer, and I've been doing data integrations and data modeling. I will never be the brilliant engineer who does magic, right, on the back end. That is not me, that's not my background. I'm a lawyer by training, and I worked in international development for the past 15 years. I worked in Africa, I worked in Iraq, I worked in Eastern Europe. And I use that knowledge to apply that and use my experience, my expertise, and my network, and learned tech. Like Palantir allowed me to learn you know, a relative amount of coding, and bring that together to do what I want to do. So I guess my main advice would be figure out what you want to do, set your goals really, really high, and then figure out what you have, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then craft that path, how you're going to get there, and knock on doors, knock on any door that you can get to. And when you speak to people, you learn from their experience, their background, and ask them, who else should I be speaking with? Give me 2 other names. Ask for introductions if they're willing to share that. Then go to that person and go and you know what? You can actually do so much. Just my main advice is don't limit yourself, and don't get boxed in. If this is what you're gonna do, just go and do it. Be proactive.
think my response will be most relevant to those in the room who aren't in engineering, who may have be business majors. I was a political economy major at Berkeley, and so just to share a little bit more about how I ended up where I am at this intersection of technology and social good. I didn't intend on ending up here. In fact, I always thought I was going to end up working for a nonprofit. I spent all of my senior year writing a thesis that was centered on the impact that social media can have on underdeveloped countries where people might not have a platform to share their voice and to talk about what situations they might be in that are dire. And so I always thought I was going to end up either continuing education, research, or ending up at a nonprofit. And so I fell in love with LinkedIn when I heard about the vision, and I was able to apply what I learned about business, project management, working at nonprofits, and how we can align that with LinkedIn's business model. And so I think any advice to people in the room here is just think about what it is that drives you, skills that you might already have or skills that you want to work on, and how you could apply that in a business social impact setting. Be open to making new connections and to thinking about things differently. And also, I mean, to Karen's point, networking is so important. Like events like this, interacting with peers who have similar interests, and also meeting people who can share their knowledge with you is super important. And I think one of my favorite exercises actually, not to drink too much from the LinkedIn Kool-Aid, but look at the LinkedIn profile of someone who you really look up to and see how they ended up where they are. That exercise is something a mentor recommended I do when I first started at LinkedIn, and it really helped shape my career path. And so I would definitely give that advice to everyone in the room too.
My recommendation would be to go outside of your comfort zone. So I actually come from a very traditional nonprofit background. I was working in New York and working abroad as well, and all with NGOs with the United Nations. And so this is my first time working for a social enterprise, and it operates like a business, and it's really exciting to work with our engineers, to work with our professional services team, to work with our operations team to kind of make this entire engine go. And so I would say push your boundaries, try something different that also coincides with some of your talents and skills. And so, like the other panelists said, try to do internships, try to do projects that are outside of your classes, because I think that will really give you that experience once you leave here, and will be truly valuable to the work that you pursue later on.
Thank you, panelists. So we're going to start the open Q&A portion of tonight. Professor Fox did mention earlier that he has to leave at 8:10, so if you have any
I can
questions...
push as long as I can.
Yeah, I'll stay as long as you can. But if you have any questions for him, you might want to ask this up front. So if you're asking a question, we ask that you please state your name, the question, and the panelist that you're addressing. And I'll let everyone know when we have time for just one more question. So let's get started. Who has a question? Yes.
Do you want a mic, or how are you doing this? Yeah, just pass the mic around.
I'm Brandon. I'm a sophomore computer science student. So I was just wondering, this is for Ryan and Palantir. What do you do to sell tech solutions to problems that people aren't comfortable with using tech for? Like self-driving cars. That would save a lot of lives, but a lot of people are really terrified of getting that out of their control. Palantir does a lot of interesting things with government. Scares a lot of people. How do you deal with the perception of tech being implemented in these types of things?
This may sound weird to you, but we actually don't sell Palantir. We don't have salespeople. We have engineers, real engineers, who go and speak with potential customers. And instead of selling Palantir and saying we're going to sell Palantir to this customer or whatever they need, we have a solution for them. We actually really try to understand what their problems are, and if they're data-related, data-driven problems, if they have reached a point where they just cannot get answers of their data with the tools that they have. And if Palantir can make a transformational change or provide transformational value for them. So we actually take quite a conservative approach, and there have been customers that kind of expect a pitch from us, and they are obviously not the right partners for us because, like what I mentioned earlier, they just don't have the high vision, or they don't provide access to their analysts or to their data for us to do our work. And we said no. So for us, it's about finding the right problems and really sometimes helping customers with their vision, refine that, and then they get going and knock out their hardest problem and then take on the next problem, and the next problem, and the next problem. So yeah, I don't really know what you mean with like scared of technology. Maybe you could clarify that a little bit more.
Yeah, just that there's a lot of things that technology can do. For example, Caltrainer does some law enforcement, predictive policing stuff that gets worked on. It may help save lives in communities where if you have officers and someone able to be otherwise, that'd be great. But some people might say, well, I don't want data deciding, whether police officers go. That should be that should be a human thing, right? And so as a computer scientist, I totally agree with Palantir, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, so I won't take up too much time, but just to explain how our software works. So our origins are actually in PayPal, the anti-fraud unit, at a time where PayPal was losing millions of dollars to Russian credit card fraud, Russian mafia. And at that time, the engineers at PayPal decided to take a fundamentally different approach than their peers at other mobile credit card firms. And they said, okay, we're not with an adaptive adversary like the Russian mafia that can figure out what they do and then they change it again. And then you cannot apply artificial intelligence to that problem. What they did is they developed technology that makes humans better analysts. So what they did is they optimized the relationship between the human, who applies intuition, experience, critical decision making, nuance, and the computer, able to process troves, huge amounts of data, right, but not good at intuition and all those things, and enable them to pull the best of both worlds together, enable humans to become better analysts. And that's what we call human-computer symbiosis, and that's what is the essence of what Palantir brings, and that is what the engineers went on to found Palantir, and that's the basic principle and the technology that we bring to these problem sets. So I agree wholeheartedly with you that the types of problems that we work on are problems where the human can identify the signal in the noise, and the computer helps with that.
Next question.
This is mainly to Professor Fox, but you guys can feel free to answer. So you kind of mentioned how you're tired of seeing all those dating apps and food delivering apps, and I totally agree. It seems pointless, right? We should spend our time doing other stuff with our skill set. But my question is, and this is something I've been grappling with for a while. How do you can you inherently say doing this thing has more value than doing that? For example, with say you have the option to work for Snapchat, could you argue that you're wasting your time working on another messaging app that doesn't really contribute much to society? But how can you weigh that against something else? It seems like it's just your...
Yeah, that's a really good question. To say that there's any career opportunity that you have where your time is going to be wasted. I mean, if you're learning something, unless what you're doing is building programs to help people club baby seals, it's not wasted time. You are going to be able to use those skills, and it's not always clear at the moment you're doing it what you're going to be able to use them for. But now, I think as far as the question of, okay, you're now at an inflection point in your life. You could do thing A or you could do thing B, and could you argue that one thing has more value than the other? My question is, which of those things would you rather be remembered for when you're dead? That's my question, right? When I'm dead, what do I want to have left behind? And sometimes the answer is, for the next couple of years I can work wherever, I'm going to pick up some skills, maybe I'll make some good money, it's all good. I'm not morally opposed to working on apps that are not sort of inherently social good kind of apps. But I think that there do come some inflection points in your life where you actually have to make a choice between two alternatives. And the way that I would make that choice is, how do you want people to remember you? You're a smart person, you've got all these things to contribute, and you are going to have times, if you're fortunate, where you will be given the choice of where you want to apply your abilities. And I think at that point, your heart's got to tell you what to do. Not me or anybody else up here can tell you, oh, there's more value in doing X than Y. That's got to come from within. So what I try to do is inculcate my students with the attitude of, look, here's what's possible. Here's things that if you did them, here's what the outcome would be. And if that makes you feel like you're leaving the world a better place, I will leave it to your internal compass to decide if the opportunity comes in your life and you have the chance to do that, which path you're going to take. And I'm not going to judge your path, but it does have to come from here.
question? You have a question here? Can you pass the mic this way?
My question is actually for Professor Fox again.
And after this, I gotta go, please.
You mentioned the technical skills and coding chops required to be able to make a change in software, and I totally understand. And I agree with that point. You also are involved with MOOCs, and you did mention that certain technical skills could be built using online courses or online things. Do you think that could actually help a person bring their skills up to speed, especially if they're not coming from a computer science background?
I do, but I think you have to pick them carefully. And I think it is the case that most MOOCs that are out there now really are targeting people who are already partway along the path. In fact, I could say that just looking at Berkeley as a case study, we're actually doing a great job. I mentioned before, like, we need more women, we need more underrepresented minorities in computer science. If you look at the sort of lower division classes, we're actually doing a good job of that. The problem is we don't retain them. We lose them as we get through the upper division, and in part it's because, like I said, coding is hard. There's a certain amount that you can sort of learn and pick up on your own and through MOOCs and stuff, but at the end of the day, there's really no substitute for having a mentor or a peer or somebody who can sort of, be shoulder to shoulder with you doing the work. And that's where being in a place like this really can help. So I think a blend of both things. I think the more you can help yourself, I've had students actually say, because a lot of what's in my 169 course is available as a MOOC on edX, and I've had students come to me and say, I'm signed up for your class next semester. Is it okay if I take the MOOC on my own first? Because then I'll have seen the material. I was like, wow, you're asking if it's okay with me if you spend your free time voluntarily to study my material? Yes, that would be great. Please do it. It won't give you an unfair advantage. It means that you're willing to work hard. But I still want you to come take 169 because in the interactions with me and your colleagues and the TAs, you are going to get things out of it, especially during that project, that you're not going to get from the MOOC. So there's the skill building part, and there's a certain amount that you can do self-service. But take advantage of being here, and not just the faculty, take advantage of your colleagues, right? Your colleagues are awesome, and students really, at the end of the day, learn as much or more from working with each other as anything that faculty can impart to them. So do as much as you can on your own, but take advantage of the fact that you're here, right? Both parts of the equation are critical. By the way, I've never been live tweeted before, it's so weird. Okay, and I apologize, but I do have to go now. Thank you guys so much for having me. Great to meet all of you.
Hi, Max. Okay. I actually have a question for all of the panelists. And my question is, sort of, how do you decide what problems are worth solving, and then, whether or not your company is the right fit to solve that problem, and then also, like, who do you partner with to sort of execute on that problem? So for sure, for example, how do you decide where your next place for Samsung is?
Sure, it's a great question, actually. So I think there are so many big global problems and challenges that we want to address. And we've kind of focused in on one, and that's poverty and youth unemployment. And so that's our starting point. And we're making a small dent, but we're hoping as we scale, we can kind of not only make impact sourcing a mainstream industry, but we can also create meaningful job opportunities for people around the world. And so it starts small, and then it starts scaling. And I think it's the next steps is not just about the number of geos we expand to, but the amount of people that we can help. And so whether it's remaining in East Africa and Southeast Asia or expanding to new countries, and I think that's an operational question that we're always grappling with, And I think a lot of it has to do with balancing our current our capabilities and our bandwidth, and then also on the client side, how many customers are we getting in through the door? And so it's an interesting intersection to be at where you're a business and a nonprofit at the same time, and you're kind of tackling some of the biggest problems. And so I know in some of the geographies that we work in, youth unemployment is at 70 to 80%. And so it's a huge problem. And so when you're kind of bringing these people into the formal sector workforce, you realize how much of an impact it has, and just the impact on one person you feel like is worth it, but then you realize you just don't want to stop there and you want to keep expanding. So one of the big next steps for us is to figure out our end game. And this was an interesting Stanford Social Innovation Review article on what should a nonprofit's end game be. And so, is it just kind of continuing your work? Is it kind of unbundling your model and kind of helping other organizations do the same? Is it selling it out to somebody like the World Bank and the UN so that they can scale it at a massive rate? We don't know. So we're trying to figure those questions out. Just a quick side note, SamaSource is actually part of a family of social enterprises called Sama Group. So we not only have this one branch, we have Sama USA, which provides digital literacy to underserved populations right here in the Bay Area and across the US. And we also have Sama Hope, which uses technology to connect people to patients in need across the world. So we're a growing family of enterprises and we're trying to tackle so many different problems, and we're quite excited by the response we've received so far. And I think this is where the intersection of technology and social good kind of comes. How can you harness technology to address different problems?
So I think at LinkedIn, obviously there's so many worthy causes that we could be focusing on. So how do you possibly tell an employee who's passionate about world hunger that they should be focused on youth employment, which is the really big theme for LinkedIn this year? And I think the short answer is that we realize we'll make the biggest difference and have the biggest impact in areas that align most closely with our company's core competencies. So our technology is clearly designed to help people build their professional identities, to connect to job opportunities, build a professional brand, and so that's why we've chosen youth unemployment. And it's interesting, Tricia mentioned the youth unemployment rates in certain geographic areas are just so high. This became just such a big area of opportunity for us to help our employees, to help other people in their local communities with really leveraging LinkedIn and our technology to connect to opportunities. And I think the same can be said of the work that we do with nonprofits. So the three areas where we can most help nonprofits succeed are in finding talent, whether that's full-time staff, board members, volunteers, with fundraising, so how they can connect with other LinkedIn members who could be potential donors, constituents, funders, and then finally how to brand themselves overall. And so everything we do by way of social impact comes back to our core competencies as a business and the skills that our employees can then help the nonprofit community to better.
Organizations doing really great work, and we only have X bandwidth, so how do we apply it? Right? It's very tough. And we always want to do more. So we do our due diligence. So we understand, what's the problem set. Do they actually have data? Do they have it, or do they want to have it? Do they have analysts to conduct the analysis? And then we look at what are your current tools. Is there a huge delta between your status quo and where we can bring if we partner with you? If we decide to go ahead, then we experiment and iterate. So we scope a very tactical project of a couple of months, and we jointly decide, has that been valuable? If it has, then hey, great. What more can we do, or can we scale this out? If not, then we amicably part ways. And also, like SamaSource, we kind of start small. So from a kind of pilot project, and then we scale out within an ecosphere. So we do try to concentrate our work like in kind of 4 main areas: social services, human trafficking, global health and agriculture, and humanitarian assistance. But at the same time, if there's a fantastic project coming, then if we can, we'll jump on it.
I'll just kind of add a last comment. In terms of, how do you pick up, an issue, that's a great question, and I echo everything that everyone said, and I would just add that, each company, each business has a core competency, a core strategy of why they exist, and it usually makes the most sense to be aligned in that field. So, for us, it is in a creative space, so we work with a lot of arts and creativity organizations, but it's not limited to that. We also do have a lot of employee volunteers, and they all support various causes. So we don't limit what we support. So we do support their efforts in the community. It could be for hunger and homelessness, or it could also be arts, which would be great. But in terms of opportunities that we are looking at, so one of the big initiatives that we just launched is a youth coding initiative, and that's a really big issue. I mean, it echoes a lot of what we're talking about here. And we realized we're not experts in that field, so we did actually go out to find partnerships. There's some great organizations out there that are already doing amazing work, amazing research. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We shouldn't. It's not our core business. And we find that we can go a lot further with them as a partnership, and that includes Girls Who Code, Code Now, and Tech Innovation are some key partnerships we have, and that space is growing, and we're continuing to evolve and find ways to make that happen for Adobe and just for the space in general.
I think we had a question up front. Do you have a question? Please ask it.
So my question is for Esther and Ariana. So how do you excite engineers in your company about social responsibility, especially when it comes to getting volunteers to work on, getting volunteers to work on a project? So the background is I'm working at a nonprofit called HackEDU. We're a network of hack clubs across the country, and we're looking to find more volunteers and fellows for organization, for development work, people to fundraise from companies such as yourselves, and creating more curriculum and educational initiatives.
Sure, I'll start. So in terms of kind of engaging and inspiring engineers, we love engineers. We wouldn't be Silicon Valley without them. And the great thing about engineers is that they approach problems like nothing's impossible. And I think we need that in the social space, in business, and everything. And so, I would say anecdotally at Adobe, a lot of it is really positioning some of these big issues in that way. It's a problem to tackle. How do they do that? How do they put their creative thinking hats on and really apply that to, this social issue? And, that for us, again, I've probably mentioned pro bono a lot. That's one very tangible way that we do that. And it's a lot about what are our strategic imperatives and who are our partners that are facing these challenges, and what time can we commit to them. We also do hackathons and find ways that really resonates with engineers, and that seems to be really fun. Throw a pizza party and everybody comes, just allows them to do what they do best in a way that helps them to understand the bigger picture beyond what they do on a day-to-day basis, but apply a fresh lens to a different problem.
Yeah, I love this question. So when we look at our employee engagement by department every year, engineering is actually the lowest in terms of engagement, which is sad to us because, as Esther called out, engineers and the skills that engineers bring to the table are so valuable for helping us construct new products, new ways of thinking about things that maybe we're not able to do on the business side. Those aren't skills that we have. And one way we've tried to help incent more participation is, to Esther's point, making sure impact is, really highlighted. So the projects that you could be working on, the impact it could have on your local community, on solving crises that have a reach outside of the scope of what you might do on a day-to-day basis. And I think another area really ties back to what I was saying earlier is we need directors and we need managers to help their employees understand the importance of this. And if they don't believe that, if they're not encouraging their employees to we have one day a month called In Days where employees are encouraged to use their time, skills, and passion for a project outside of their normal day job. If they're not encouraging their engineers to actually take that day and work on something that has a bigger impact, then they're not going to do it. And so we're trying to figure out how we can really crack that big challenge of getting directors and managers to maybe even use it as a way of evaluating the way that their employees are considered successful and really doing their job at LinkedIn. So if you have any ideas, let us know. We've tried a lot of things, like getting directors to speak at engineering all hands, sub-department all hands, getting our CEO to talk about it during company-wide all hands, things like that. So really, any other ideas are more than welcome.
I'll ask my question, although Ariana just spoke somewhat to it. I wanted to say I'm very grateful for the great positive social impact that all of you and your companies are having. I also just want to thank Byron and Blueprint for writing software, Project Homeless Connect last week. My name is Hi Carroll, and I'm a lead volunteer with Project Homeless Connect. I was skeptical that the software that was being changed the day before the event was going to work smoothly. I managed 100 volunteers in Escort, and your check-in software went like that, and I've never seen people come through check-in so quickly before. And overall, my impression is that the software was extremely successful, and thank you. As far as my question goes, I'm really grateful about LinkedIn with adding volunteer positions and causes. I think that's really great to get people being able to see it as a significant part of professional development. And so, yeah, my question is just to kind of throw back at the panel, maybe to spare Ariana on this one. In terms of professional development, how can you get managers to recognize employee, volunteer, and community contributions as a significant part of them developing as people, as them developing as leaders in the company? and encouraging them to take on leadership roles outside of the company to bring those skills and collaboration tools back. So yeah, what are ideas to get middle management and directors to encourage their reports to volunteer more?
Start us. So at least for Adobe, so we're working really closely with our HR department to talk about all of our initiatives as leadership opportunities and all of the management training. It's no longer a nice to have, but to see it really as building skills, and it's providing opportunities that they might not be able to provide on a team, just sort of in a regular project setting. It allows them to really explore, develop communication skills, project management, maybe other skills that don't apply to their day-to-day, but really allows them to take the lead on something and to showcase that as a key way for development and as part of that development conversation that we do on a regular basis. Maybe that's one for us.
Yeah, at Palantir, we try to provide opportunities for people across the entire company. We have over 1,500 people to take part in our work. Of course, we cannot allow that opportunity or give that opportunity to everyone because we're a very small team. But we are starting a rotation program, or at least getting it far more streamlined internally, so that people can spend, 4 weeks to 3 months or 6 months with a nonprofit partner. If they have been working very, very hard on commercial contracts and they come to philanthropy and they work on global health. By the way, we do the same for, we're starting a new program for students, and we call it the Philanthropy Engineering Fellowship, which allows students who are still studying to actually stop out and join us for 6 months or 12 months if they desire to do that. And we'll match them up with one of our partners and get them going on our bigger opportunities. And we are kind of opportunistic as well at the same time, in the sense that, for example, our work on disaster relief, we kind of surge when there's a need. So for Sandy, post-Hurricane Sandy, we not only have 5 engineers from the philanthropy team on the ground, but hey, we actually get people from across all the different offices to contribute. For Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines last year, we had our Australia teams, our New Zealand teams, our US teams, our European teams all contributing around the clock. So we kind of surge as there is an opportunity and involve everyone there, allow people to, or Palantirians to really engage with our partners and learn and get excited and do something with it.
So I don't have too much new groundbreaking information to share outside of what I may have already touched on. I think the question really is, how do you get employee volunteerism and engagement in social impact opportunities to go beyond an add-on and a nice-to-have to something that's just what people do? It's part of their core job. It's part of what they look at their peers next to them and they see that their peers taking the day to volunteer or work with someone from the local community who might need help building a LinkedIn profile and is a job seeker or a veteran, and not think it's something out of the ordinary. It's just what we do. And I don't know if we fully cracked the challenge of how do we create that internal paradigm shift to it being so, I guess, just embedded in everything we do on a day-to-day. I don't know if it's possible for every employee, so I think part of it is being realistic, but one way we're trying to take a start at it is just by making these opportunities both more accessible and also more proximate. So real local and community impact or volunteer opportunities where employees really feel that they're actually making a change and an impact. We don't want to just rent a bus and take a group of employees out to go pot plants at a local community garden, which, not knocking that, I'm sure that it's a very valuable thing to do, but what are the odds that employees going to want to volunteer again if they really feel like they didn't do something that changed someone's life or that even changed someone's day? And so we want to make sure that by having this focus on youth unemployment, that's really one step for us to help our employees feel more motivated to volunteer on a more regular basis and also
to help their managers and their peers also feel equally a part of the movement.
I actually wanted to add something on the flip side of it. So companies like LinkedIn, Google have been such a boon for us. For our flagship programs like SamaSource, we have a whole team of dedicated engineers to work on our tech platform. But for some of our newer social enterprises like Sama Hope, we actually had a team from Google come in to kind of help us think of new ideas, new user interfaces to help people connect more to the platform and allow people to donate directly towards surgeries across the world. And so it was really helpful to get ideas from outside of the organization, from other teams working on very different issues and problems, and kind of just pick their brains on how can we do things better, how can we improve our internal processes and systems. So I would highly recommend LinkedIn, Adobe, Palantir, whatever other company that's in the Bay Area to continue what they're doing. And I think it has a great effect, not only for nonprofits that you're working with, but for the employees as well. Great. I think we've learned a lot from other teams, and I think they've learned a lot from us as well.
All right, we have time for just one more question. There's a couple gentlemen sitting here.
Okay, so I come from an architecture background, so it's like very different from most of the people here. Sound really weird, but so I was wondering, what's your opinion on how design and designers come into this tech and social good equation? For Palantir, you mentioned how you guys really value your engineers, but you guys also, is there still a demand for designers? Is this kind of emerging field? Oh, this question's for all, I guess.
Yeah, design as a skill, for sure. We have, of course, a lot of very good designers that help us, make the software much nicer. But I think in general, to respond to your question, kind of a design thinking, if you will, right? Is to take a problem apart and understand what a customer needs, and then develop a customized solution, with keeping scale in mind and your product that you have already, is extremely useful. So, thinking back at that earlier question, like what can you do if you're not an engineer and you want to work in tech? It's really, engineering is all about executing relentlessly, problem solving. And I think a design background has a similar mindset. So honing those skills, I think makes a lot of sense. You could definitely contribute. Similarly for me as a lawyer, I'm also problem solving. It kind of comes together in a way. Find your right fit, but there's definitely.
I actually wanted to add to that. So SamaSource is a very multidisciplinary team. We do have teams of engineers who code all day long, and then we also have people like me who are working on kind of analyzing social impact, figuring out what does it mean to have the impact that we do. Does this mean our time's up? No. So I would really, there's always space for different disciplines, different approaches, and I think that's what makes you a strong team player, especially in this particular space. So I would not feel discouraged or hesitant to kind of jump right in.
We love designers at Adobe, so I think you're in good company. But in all seriousness, I completely agree. Design thinking is a very key skill in any job you take. If you're going to be part of the Silicon Valley, you've got to be innovative, you've got to be creative. And that design thinking is something that a lot of companies are really adopting. And there's a lot of design innovation labs. I know Facebook has one, we have one. We have an experienced design team that's just focused on looking at problems differently and looking at it through a design lens. So I hope that's encouraging to you. I would even say at Haas, I have a class that I took that was problem finding, problem solving, and it was all about design innovation. My professor was from the architecture department, and so it's a very key role, and it's something that whatever discipline you want to go into, it's something that you can apply.
Great, thank you everyone. So, okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, you guys will get through this soon. I kind of just wanted to talk economics for a second. So I know a lot of these social initiatives do not fundamentally gain profits, and especially for like public companies, you guys have a duty to maximize shareholder value. So I was just wondering, is it only possible for companies to start looking for ways to, like get management directors to value social good initiatives? Is it only possible for companies to even start doing this once they become big enough and there's not significant competition? Because I would imagine that it's very difficult for a lot of companies out there to have like a nonprofit branch or these social initiatives. And I know for Palantir, I think the salary is actually capped at $127,000, and they make an effort to actually like limit the amount of revenue. But how do you like balance this kind of like social desire to do social good with just like the competitiveness of the market?
I can share a perspective here. So LinkedIn has been around since 2003. LinkedIn for Good has been around for maybe 4 years in that time span. And when we first started, and to your point, it's a really valid one, when people wearing multiple hats already and you're in a startup environment with a lot of competition, LinkedIn's trying to develop its own value proposition and stick out from the noise of a very competitive technology space. Social impact maybe is not going to be at the forefront of that. But it could be something that is part-time of what certain employees who feel really passionately about it can work on. And so when I first started at LinkedIn, LinkedIn for Good was barely getting up and running. It didn't really exist. It was something that there were like a group of 5 or 10 of us that felt really strongly that LinkedIn should be working on, and we would meet ad hoc and work on it on our free time. So it wasn't something that really had a concerted effort behind it or full-time employees working on it until I'd say the last 2 years. So I saw that evolution happen, and it really did become more and more evident when we were able to show how much it can help us achieve our business objectives, as well as be something that employees feel proud of and something our shareholders show LinkedIn as a more long-term, purpose-driven company. So in short, it wasn't always something that was front and center, but I think some passionate employees and slowly some grassroots efforts and making it more, highlighting the efforts a little bit more. Now we have a lot of full-time employees working on it, and it's definitely a big part of what we do.
Yeah, in our case, so it took us like a couple of years to actually, where is the...
Oh,
yeah, there you go. It took us a couple of years to actually develop the product. So while doing that, like, we took kind of a very ad hoc approach, because our CEO is like, hey, our raison d'etre, our reason for being here is to solve our problem. So, if there's a good problem that we can solve, but there is no capability to pay for it, that's fine, we'll do it. We'll do it nevertheless. So, we have done that kind of sporadically ad hoc for many years since the start of the company, but we could do much more once there was actual product, obviously. So that has kind of streamlined and consolidated, and now we have a philanthropy engineering team. And in our world, we are not a .org, we're not a foundation, we are fully part of the company, and that's crucial for our model, because we can apply everything that the company offers to all our commercial clients, to our nonprofit customers as well. And they get exactly the same treatment. So yeah, I don't really see, and so we do not actually give money away, so we don't do grants, because we think it's infinitely more powerful to give away a product and our best engineers than giving some money away. So that's our model. And just to respond to your salary cap, if people are wondering, so our model is very high equity and a capped salary. So we are all co-owners of the business, and we're growing very rapidly. So if you're interested, then definitely apply. Sorry for the PSA here.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a last comment. You mentioned, the question was, do you have to reach a certain size to kind of get involved in this? And I would say no. It's just a different type of business, model. There are a lot of social enterprises that started and continue to be social enterprises. Tom's is a good example, where we partner, where they're very focused on, addressing a social need, but it's still a business and they're making money. So they kind of go hand in hand. But again, it's completely different than how Adobe would operate.
So it just depends on what you're specifically looking for and how you want to make the impact. So our impact will just look differently than maybe a social enterprise would, but it's a difference in scale and target markets and strategy. And so it's just really up to you what your interests are.
Okay, thank you. No more last minute questions, but you guys are free to approach our panelists afterwards. So actually, just kidding. I have one last question. Are there any current opportunities from your organization that you would like audience to know about?
So sponsors and summer groups are always hiring. So feel free to take a look at our careers pages across all three entities to see what makes sense for you. SamaSource is always hiring for different engineers. And even if you're interested in internship opportunities or short-term opportunities as well, they may not be posted, but feel free to reach out via our general email or my personal email address. I'll hand it out afterwards. So yeah, we would love to connect with people who have various multidisciplinary backgrounds.
LinkedIn is also always hiring, and for new graduates, we actually have this program. So we're always hiring engineers. For those of you who are not in engineering, who may have multidisciplinary backgrounds, or someone like me who is political economy, we have a BLP program, Business Leadership Program. We recruit actively from top schools across the country. It's a rotational program that covers customer support, sales, product. So you really would do like a 3-month rotation through a lot of key areas of LinkedIn, and you learn a ton. And so this is a program I actually asked ahead of time. They start recruiting in September, and they come to career fairs at Cal. So look out for LinkedIn booth. I found out about LinkedIn at the career fair here, so I can't emphasize enough. Put yourself out there, network, and you might see the right opportunity. So definitely keep LinkedIn on your radar.
Yes, we need good people. So there are multiple opportunities there. It's like full-time, of course, and you can go to the website, or I believe that we have something later on. Yes. There is the name of a recruiter that if you're interested, you can just ping her. We have internships. We're kind of at the end of our internship hiring for immediate internships now, starting in about a month or two. And we have that STOP-OUT program that I mentioned earlier, which is the Philanthropy Engineering Fellowship that we're launching very shortly as well. So definitely reach out, and if you have resumes on you and you want to give them to me, then please do, and I'll pass them on to our recruiters.
Yeah, same thing. Adobe's always hiring, so check out our careers pages, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and all that jazz. There's always opportunities, and check out, we have an Adobe Life blog, which talks about the different, folks that have come from different career paths or, different cool projects they're working on. Definitely just let me know if you have any specific questions, but yes, we're always hiring.
Awesome. So if you're interested in any of these opportunities, please view this slide behind me. We're going to keep it up during the mingling portion. So at this point, we're almost ready to start that portion. Just a couple last important notes. So if you're interested in Movement, we have newsletter signups outside on laptops. We'll also be serving food. So if you're interested in getting some dinner, we'll be serving food outside, so you're welcome to grab some wraps to go. So this has been a pretty incredible conversation with all of you. I know that all of us probably come from very diverse backgrounds, different majors, but I think one thing that we all have in common is that we care about making an impact on other people and helping others. So it's very humbling for me to be in this room, especially with our panelists. We have a small token of appreciation for you guys, so, here it comes. Right. So please stick around to receive these, and thank you all for coming tonight.